Welcome to Mastering Mortgages, presented by Revolution Mortgage, the podcast that demystifies the world of mortgages, real estate, and homeownership. Our goal is to empower and inspire homebuyers, real estate professionals, and mortgage industry leaders. My name is Danielle, and I want to invite you to join me as I sit down with today's guest to talk about practical tips and valuable insights into the mortgage industry. Hey everyone, and welcome back to a new episode of the Mastering Mortgages podcast. We're excited to bring you today's episode featuring two outstanding guests from Revolution Mortgage. Joining us from our headquarters are Femi Ayi, EVP of Operations, and Mike Ryan, VP of Engineering. We'll be exploring the transformative impact of technology on the mortgage industry, diving into the latest trends in the real estate market, and uncovering a few fun facts about our guests along the way. So let's get started. Femi and Mike, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode, just covering technology. And first, just diving into it, we wanted to start off with learning a little bit more about you guys. So we were just curious what hobbies or interests you might have outside of work that could surprise our listeners. And Femi, we can start with you.
It's starting with me, so I don't have to follow Mike. Great, that's wonderful. I have no outstanding fun hobbies outside of work. I really love to cook. It's my jam. It's what I do separately. It gives me a little reward out of the effort that I put into something, so I can help me de-stress because you have to focus on what you're doing, and as long as you're focused well, you end up with good outcomes. I don't do a lot of recipes for other things. I think I've written down maybe 4 recipes in 10 years, and those were all to share with people at work. I'm a technique guy. Learn how to sear correctly, learn how to braise correctly, learn how to emulsify things, learn what egg yolks do to a sauce, and then just kind of play chopped in my own house, show up with whatever proteins I got and turn it into fancy foods. So it's a lot of fun. That's my side jam.
That's definitely next level cooking for sure. And Mike, what about you?
Um, I guess I start my day lifting. Bodybuilding is probably what I spend a good bit of my personal time doing. I'm also a guitarist, specifically acoustic guitar. I play a lot of acoustic folk. I like to cover old classic rock songs or even R&B songs. I've got covers of like Boys to Men songs, that I can perform. And it's probably no surprise that software engineering is a hobby of mine. A lot of people don't know, but I'm not college educated. And the reason I came into this field and became a software engineer is because it was a passion of mine. And that extends to building apps, blockchain development, distributed apps, DeFi, and AI, user experience. I mean, I'm across the entire spectrum, with the software engineering stuff. So. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, that is definitely really interesting. And I feel like if, you're just working together on anything behind the scenes, then might be something that you might not know right away. So good to know. Well, thanks guys for sharing that. And just to kind of segue over to a little bit about y'all's background, can you tell us a little bit just about your background in general and before Revolution Mortgage, and then just kind of during or like where you're at now?
Oh, you, Mike.
Yeah. So, I've been a coder for, almost, I don't want to say almost 40 years, but it's well over 30 years. I wrote my first line of code in 1991. I started when I actually started doing it in the workplace was probably early 2000s. And it's a lot of on-the-job training, and that led to me becoming a consultant. I was the tech lead, had a Fortune 100 company, and multiple Fortune 500 companies. Successfully launched some startups, or I should say, helped launch some startups. And we did roof measurement software. That was actually the gig I was doing before I came to to Revolution Mortgage. It's funny being a software engineer because you end up in so many different industries. Your product is never going to be the same thing it previously was. So before I came here, I was writing roof measurement software. So we would essentially make it so that a roofer could have an iPad and they could just punch in an address and they could just look at aerial imagery of a rooftop, sketch all the facets of the roof, provide estimates to their customers, and they never even had to go on site or get up on the roof, with a tape measure to measure the roof. So yeah, just been doing, working as a consultant, working as a startup, just a coder at heart.
I
And how
love
did,
hearing that stuff.
yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it sounds like you've definitely been doing this a long time and still even in the house industry, with construction and roofs and whatnot. So how did you find your way over to Revolution Mortgage?
I actually have known Tim Johnson for almost 20 years. A friend of mine, a mutual friend of Tim and mine, he's actually a loan officer for Revolution Mortgage. His name is Robert Petty. He's a good friend of mine. While I was working at the roof measurement company, Roof Snap, he reached out and said, "Hey, Tim started a brand new mortgage company. There's only like 20 people working there. We need a website. Can you help us build a website?" So this was, I think it was end of 2018, maybe very beginning of 2019, and what I ended up putting together for them moonlighting, just on the side was just a basic WordPress site. And then, Tony had additional requirements and we just kind of built on that. And then the next thing you know, right about the time that we sold RoofSnap, at the end of 2019, Tony reached out and asked if I was willing to come on full time and, start kicking off our engineering efforts. And, sky's been the limit since. It's just, it's amazing the growth that we've seen in, the opportunities that I've had in this role because of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it just sounds like it was meant to be. So love to hear that. And Femi, let's hear from you as well.
You want to? Why am I on here? Nobody wants to hear what I have to say. That's a fun one. How did I get started in this? That's a weird thing. So a little bit about my background. Let's stick with mortgages mostly, right? So I got started in sales. I was working at a broker shop in Delaware. That was the largest shop in Delaware right after the crash. And I promptly unseated their top salesman over like 10 years in 3 months, and just kind of held it all the way through. Got to a point where I was realizing we were running into issues. I worked with my roommate at the time to build an individual piece of software to help solve some of the frustrations that still exist today. And what we built for the broker setup really worked. And what I realized is that I could have a larger impact on helping others getting the work done than helping a family at a time or two families at a time. It's great to be a loan officer and say, "Hey, I closed 8 loans and got eight families into houses." It's really better to say, "Hey, I made this so everybody can close 8 loans, and we've got 100 loan officers. So, now we've got 800, or we've got 8,000, or we've got 8 million, or we've got whatever it is at scale." It's how do you get that to the next level? So, I started working in the operations portion of the mortgage when we left that broker shop and started up with a correspondent lender. From there, it was process flow, and then from there it was underwriting, and from underwriting it was back to branch management. Then it was back to process flow. Then it was back to underwriting. Then it was back to branches, and you start going in this little circle. And I was having great success at each space that I was. Everything was becoming more efficient and just kind of taking the next level were the pieces that were out there. And I ended up in a training capacity role at another company that I was working with. And I had previously worked with Tim, Tony, Joe, and Frank. Tim, Tony, Joe, and Frank. Joe, Frank, Joe, and Dave. I had previously worked with them as an underwriter at another place. And Tim just kept calling me. And at one point, I just accidentally didn't hit the hang up button. was a whole lot of I'm busy. I don't have time to talk to you. I'm busy. I don't have time to talk to you. Then we get there and show up in an interview, and I end up arm wrestling Tim in the interview for some reason. I still don't understand how that happened or why that happened. But Tony was trying to introduce me to all the different department heads and everything, and I'm just like, I'm not really interested in who the department heads are. I'm interested in the infrastructure of what's going on. What is in our LOS software? How are we getting the files in our LOS software? How is the configuration set up? Is it sustainable? Is everything compliant? Is everything in an area where we can have, minor tweaks that have major gains? And then I spent my time from that. Spent a lot of time with Revolution with some individual offices, learning what our challenges were and what our problems were. Spent time in lots of different work groups, like with the Mortgage Collaborative and some other places, going to conferences, listen to other people who are good at what they're doing. And what we realized is the vision that Tony had for this company required things that needed to be done at a different scale than let me throw bodies at the problem. So it was like mid 2021 or something like that. It was just after March. I'm driving back from Miami, and I realized that what we really needed to do was embark on a journey to really automate a lot of the systems that we're doing within our manufacturing process. If you come up to the speed that automation can really help you manufacture alone, it can help you hit that scale so that you don't run into I have staffing size problems, or that you don't run into the same problems that I had in 2009 as an originator or something like that. Like you can run into a whole new set of problems that are fun. But that was really what it was. So it was a whole lot of mortgages from sales through underwriting, projects, audits, all kinds of everything. Everything that you can do in the mortgage world is something that I've spent some time in doing. And now it's just a question of how do you make it most efficient? How do you get that real big scale going and put it in something that everybody can adapt to?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely a question that's always being asked. And that actually is a great point to the next thing that we wanted to talk about, which is just what are some of the key technologies that Revolution Mortgage is currently using to enhance the client experience, and how do these tools benefit both the clients and professionals in the industry? Which either one of you can take this and run with it, but we definitely want to hear from both of you. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw it to Mike with a point on it. So let's think of something that's a little fun, because as I was mentioning earlier, the audience for Mike and I are probably professionals, less so on the home buyers. But there may be people that will at least understand what we're saying. They use these things in other industries. It may make sense. So think of this, Mike. Think of our CRM software. Our CRM is customer relationship software. It's what allows you to maintain contact with something. Now, if I'm a loan officer and I've been a loan officer for 20 years and I've been doing 10 loans a year for 20 years, I've got a large book of business. How do I maintain contact with with those people? How do we make sure that they are clear and understanding what's going on? Now, every CRM system has the ability to do something. And when somebody says, what's the best CRM system? My answer is always, it's the one you use the most. There's one branded name that does this. There's one branded name that does that. It's a real question of whether or not we can help our loan officers, our branch managers, our people remain in touch with that. So think about this question, Mike, specifically in the ask of a CRM. How do we use a CRM in a situation that helps both our customers and our LOs?
Well, I mean, like you said, just that, you've got a 20-year-old Rolodex, and I oftentimes wonder, what it looked like 20 years ago before you had these robust CRMs. Like you're on the phone a lot. You're constantly having to, remember birthdays and, that type of thing. Whereas CRM really kind of takes all of that and, automates that for you. You've got, drip campaigns that can automatically send out communications to these individuals, these prospects that, before you would have to manually go through that exercise, of doing that. And even like, I would almost say like anything that's, customer facing, I wonder, like our point of sale system, for example, like, I'm still relatively new to the industry, but I know what Encompass can do. I know what the LOS can do. And I wonder, like before a point of sale system, how are we managing docs? Like what did that 1003 process look like? Like the point of sale system just it makes it so much smoother. The communication, giving an easy place for a borrower to upload documents, or even to go in and see a checklist of things that they're expected to upload. And then, the same with SnapDocs, what we're using for our digital closings. I mean, I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I actually I can't imagine what it looked like before SnapDocs. I got a small glimpse into that, and we even our engineering team we tried to build something little custom for that, but SnapDocs made it irrelevant, and I'm glad because it's so much more robust. It makes so much more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. I want to piggyback into that one more time on the how does it help the both clients and professionals in the industry. You know how it helps is when we can take something that says like it's a CRM software, so it's maintaining the relationship between our salesperson or our production staff and all the customers. Customers don't have to follow the market and say, "Am I down for 3/4 of a point in my interest rate?" The CRM software can actually notify them, "Hey, we have this thing tied into our pricing engine, so it's not a generic offer that you get in the mail that just says, 'Hey, you've been pre-approved for whatever.' It's actually specific. It has run the pricing of your profile as we have the information at that time and can notify that to the customer. It says, 'Hey, this is what's going on.' Put you in touch with the person that says, 'Hey, can we talk about this?'" I listened to many of the other podcasts, and most of our branch managers were in there saying the education piece is so important for the consumers, especially for the first-time homebuyers. Do they understand what's going on? And they were really, really, really harping in on how you get that. And like I say earlier, everything I do, I think about at scale. So how do I do that for 100 loan officers? How do I do that for 600 loan officers? How do I give 600 loan officers the ability to touch 1,000 clients apiece? How do we do that at scale and accurately on a consistent basis? That's where it really benefits the customer, because you're not getting this generic, "Hey, this is what's going on." You're getting, "This is really specific and germane to you. Do you want to take advantage of it?" I think this is a super cool piece that folks don't realize what it takes to actually build.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad that you pointed that out as well. And I know that you guys touched on this a little bit, but if you want to go into a little bit more depth of just with the rise of these digital platforms and online services that are more available now than ever, how has the relationship between loan officers, real estate agents, and clients changed? And are there any specific challenges or benefits that stand out to you?
There's a lot that stands out to me. As Mike said, he's a little newer in the mortgage space.
I was going to lob this one over to you.
He's old hat in coding. He's been coding since I was in elementary school, right? We know what's going on. But the relationship, like if you listen to some of the other podcasts that have been on here, people describe challenges, and they describe changes and benefits and adapting to technology, not being afraid of it, and understanding that if you're not getting with it, you're going to get passed over real quick. Like left behind is the right way. All right, you're going to get left behind. So when you take a look at something and say let's go with as the simple piece that Mike mentioned earlier, document collection. It's been a topic in some of your other podcasts as well. But document collection back in 2008, 2009 was, I need to go physically get this document. Then it turned into fax me this document. Then it turned into, I need a digital image of this document. Then it turned into, I need a PDF of this document. Now we've got ways where we can eliminate the document in total. We can use services that are consumer permission data portals, like with our verification of employment software. Customer logs into their HRIS system, just like you're logging in to put time off or whatever, and it extracts all the information that comes out. Now, the good part to the consumer is, okay, now you don't have to go chase down W-2s and old pay stubs from forever. You can just log into this and get your information. The benefits to the lender, they they get exponential. And this is where I'm going to dork out on you for a second. Let's say we work on this with something that says, okay, we've got documents. Now those documents pass to our AUS system that everybody's required to run their loans through to make sure that we're matching agency eligibility. Now, if we're running a specific type of verification, some of that information will pass so that we can get what's identified as reps and warrants from the agency, or day one certainty, or AIM, or however you want to call it. It's just it's agency acceptance of the data in the format that it is that requires no additional documentation. So our customer can say, hey, instead of I think this is what our underwriters are going to calculate for income, they can come back with certainty and say, because you filled this out online in through this portal and we have all this information, we know this is 100% accurate and the agencies will accept it right there. So at that pace, you don't have to go collect a document from a customer. You don't have to do something like it's 2006 again, or you're not sitting there going through saying, I can't take a screenshot of this bank statement, or I need this document, or worse, saying, please email me this because you're worried about something getting spoofed, or somebody getting a fake wire into an email chain, or getting your email hacked where you end up saying, hey, I was saving money for a house, but this fraudster came up and said I had to wire all my money here. We don't want those communications. We don't want areas that have seams in it where people can penetrate our system. We want to be within one experience, one user experience system that securely gets all the documentation from the consumers to the endpoint that we need to manufacture and sell the loan. And that's the cool stuff of like the consumer permission data that we have with Truve. That's the cool stuff about using day one certainty. That's the cool stuff about just using the POS software that Mike was talking about. Earlier, and saying, hey, how did you do that before? You did it before with a phone call. You did it before with an appointment that used to say you'd sit down and do it. And again, at all things at scale, I've got 100 loan officers or 600 loan officers. How do I get them all doing 6 apps at the same time? How do we do that? And that's leveraging our POS technology, leveraging our consumer permission data sources, leveraging our day one certainty, leveraging the POS to speak to our LOS and keep that data and document secure. That's how we do it. Did I dork out super hard?
And Mike, do you have anything that you want to add to that? Or are there maybe another question for you, Mike, would be, are there any technologies that we use that you would say we are particularly early adopters of that that can help improve the loan process?
I don't know about early adopters. I mean, the large language models, what's happening with generative AI, it really kind of blew up on the scene at the end of 2022. It's been around for a while, but the end of 2022 is when OpenAI released ChatGPT, and that kind of got everybody familiar with it. And shortly after that, there's just no shortage of service providers popping up, that have some type of AI solution to bolt on to, whatever they're already offering. We're integrating in the process right now of integrating with a partner that they've got GSE large language models, to help us, select the ideal product, for a borrower, or to answer questions about, Fannie and Freddie. It's also going to give us a way to work internally with our help center. With really not just our help center articles, but any of our documents. It's got, I always want to say vector. It's not vector. Oh, anyway, an AI database. It's not vector. It is vector. It's vector. I wanted to say vertex. It's vector. Yeah. Vector databases that, indexing all of our documents that we have so that you can just chat with a chat bot and ask it questions just like you would, somebody on the other end of, if you're working with somebody in a help center. These chat bots are not like what we imagine in, the traditional sense, where it's, it can only answer a very limited number of questions and then, it just fails and you're stuck. You feel like you're actually chatting with, a human, and we're in the process of adopting that. Femi and we attend the Mortgage Collaborative, and we've seen some other mortgage companies who have adopted it, and they've seen great success. So an early adopter, I don't know. We have seen people that already have adopted it, but the power behind it's undeniable, and we definitely want to leverage that, sooner than later.
Yeah,
You're
absolutely.
scaring me, Danielle. Early adopters. You know what happens when something fails at enterprise scale? It costs a lot of money. When
We've
you
looked
have
at
something that's
adopting
an
some
early
tech.
adoption, we're
Femi was scaring
early.
me.
We're early when we're early when we're not late. That's the easiest way to say it, right? Like you have to be able to establish that something's going to work and is going to work at enterprise scale in the way that it does. Um, uh, People truly don't understand the amount that mistakes cost. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a bit of a report geek. I've got items that can tell you exactly what our losses are on any particular space at any particular time. If you don't have accuracy or certainty at a specific level, there's just no room in your space in banking for your software. So early adopters is literally you're early if you're not late. If you're not the last guy at the table, you are still an early adopter in this industry.
Now
Yeah.
we have looked at being like the first to adopt some
We
technologies, and
no
that's super early, and luckily we all got on the same page with that and realized that was not going to be good for us.
Hmm.
right. I mean, we've got what 700 employees here at Revolution or somewhere in that area right now. Can you imagine what happens if somebody's saying, "Hey, let's get this, let's get this, let's get this," and you falter at one of those things? It doesn't go well for a lot of people. There's a lot of business to be managed. We're doing a lot of business, a lot of loans, and a lot of people that depend on mission critical software that must work every time, all the time, in a predictable fashion.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate you pointing that out.
And
Um,
honestly, at an early stage, like Femi saw capacity being demoed years ago, and it
Uh-huh.
was not like we could have adopted it then, but it was not where it is now. Like right now is the ideal time, to jump in. They've matured. They've got referrals. They've got clients that we can talk to. So, yeah.
We're
To
not afraid
summarize,
of them.
yeah, we
We're
don't
not guinea
want to
pigs.
be we don't want to be the first, right? Yeah, exactly. But
when
we
all the
don't want to be
kinks
too
get
late.
worked out. Yeah. I definitely understand that. And a little bit later, I want to dive in a little more about just emerging technologies and stuff. I know we touched a little bit on AI, and I definitely want to dive more into that in a minute. But just taking a step back, and I know Femi mentioned how we have all these secure technologies in place, but I just wanted to ask about how many people have concerns about new technology and cybersecurity. And of course, the mortgage process is very sensitive information. So, how do you feel technology is impacting or improving both the mortgage process and security measures?
I mean, as far as new technology goes and the fears around that, that's fear around new technology is nothing new. When the telephone was first introduced, people worried that about privacy, and they even worried that it would damage their hearing. And that's no longer a thing. And in this case, in the mortgage industry, some of the newer technologies are actually like AI, for example, AI pattern recognition. And blockchain, like these two things they work hand in hand to really offer transparency. The pattern recognition part of AI can detect security vulnerabilities. They can detect fraud before current methods would. So yeah, the new technology, we just need to harness it, because if you look at what the way that things have been in the industry up to this point, it's far more less secure than what the newer technology has to offer.
Like paper trails and stuff. Yeah, what could go wrong?
I, I worked at a place. I, oh gosh, this is 15 years ago or something like that. I was working in the bank. Then the bank got shut down by the FDIC for not being capitalized after not meeting the requirements. It's no big story. This is after the financial crisis in 2007 that kind of kept spilling. So I'm working at this place, and it's like 2009 or 2011, and the FDIC shows up to shut the doors, and they're like, "Okay, what do we got?" And the FDIC shows up with literally banker boxes with trash bags to collect files and documents, put the documents in there, label them, and then zip tie the bag. And I'm sitting there going, this is the security for non-personal information from the FDIC. Okay, that's you guys got a zip tie. Good for you. I mean, there's some crazy stuff that's going on there. Some crazy stuff that's going on there. When I think of the new technologies and I think of the cybersecurity pieces, I'm so concerned over wire fraud. I've lost hair over it. Like lots, and then I just pulled it all out thinking about this. The amount of attempts at penetrations to emails, to title companies, to lenders, to anything else, because of the success rate being, I'm not going to get somebody and scam them for $4,000. I'm going to get somebody and get them for $400,000. I'm going to get them for their full down payment. I'm going to get that stuff scares the heck out of me. It's one of the reasons that I really lean into things like the consumer permission data and automated validations and using portals for items. Email's not right. It's even if it's a secure email, you're exposing yourself just that your email address is out there, that somebody else can try and spoof it. It's not the right place to send the communication. And again, the piece that I'm looking at, and I struggle with this, is how do you get a technology that serves the need that is usable to the person? So the consumer permission data that we have for pay stubs information, it's really in how you market it. When the customers get the notification, if they haven't been educated by their loan officers, they're gonna be like, "What is this? It's spam. It's something. I'm not doing it," and they're not going to go through with it. The question really comes: how do I get the loan officers to agree to that? How do I get the branch managers to understand that it's in their best interest if they can better secure the information and just set this information up like it's Venmo for your pay stubs, right? Everybody set up a Cash App or a Venmo app in the last 5 years. And 15 years ago, if somebody told you would be digitally sending money from your phone, you'd be like, "I'll never hook up my bank account to that," right? Things become commonplace. Like Mike was saying with the telephone, people were worried about what's going on. They're always worried about the next generation. They're always worried about the next piece of technology. Understand the technology behind it, understand where its weak points are, understand that if you have mission critical capability and you're not going to fail and you don't have exposure, that's the kind of thing that we want to adopt. That's where we want to be. That's what we want to do, because it's going to help some folks out. There's going to be that 80-year-old lady who doesn't know that. There's going to be somebody who still needs you to come pick up their W-2 or their Social Security award letter because it comes in the mail. There's just going to be a few people, but every year it's less and less, and we can get a bigger percentage of the pie to adapt and adopt normal technologies that just ease the interface of them working with people. It's very important when you understand you're taking out a mortgage, you're borrowing in the US, you're borrowing $400,000. I'm not going to lend you $400,000 without validating you can pay it back. Understanding if I can make that process easier and faster, that's the purpose of the technology. Easier, faster, more reliable, so that you have the right answer as quickly as you possibly can. And that's really how I hope to get people to adapt into the new stuff, is explaining, changing their thought process on what it's for, what it's about, why we do it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And just a good outlook of, don't be naive when it comes to technology, and but also, just learn more about it and, what exactly it can do so that you can jump in and apply it to your work and what you're doing to be more efficient. So yeah, great topic there. And just to kind of go over this last topic that we wanted to cover, and I know we touched on it a little bit with the AI, but looking ahead, what emerging technologies do you believe will have the biggest impact on the mortgage and real estate industries in the next, 2 to 5 years?
You want me to take that one, Femi?
I feel like I've been talking this whole time and just looking at you.
Well, so Femi and I, like I mentioned earlier, we go to the Mortgage Collaborative every 6 months, and we get the privilege of sitting in on their tech fund. Their tech fund is a place where startups they get to present, the technology that they're building, and then they get awarded, a cash prize at the end, I believe. But we've seen some really cool things in there, and you can kind of just based on that, you can kind of see where things are headed. Blockchain is going to be it's an undeniable technology, and I don't necessarily mean crypto, but blockchain itself and the ability to have a distributed ledger. Some of the startups that we've seen are managing like title and deeds, on a distributed ledger. So, the transfer, the recording, it's immutable. So once it's recorded on the blockchain, it can never be changed. So you can, it eliminates the risk of fraud, especially when combined with AI pattern recognition. So I think that I think blockchain's definitely going to play a part, and not in just that one application. There's also the idea of for real estate investors, like tokenization of the real estate asset class, taking something that's otherwise illiquid and making it liquid. This would allow real estate investors to have fractional ownership of real estate, and it's all recorded on a distributed ledger. So aside from blockchain applications that the AI, like AI powered valuations, we've got automated valuation models out there, but throwing AI at it's just going to put them on steroids. It's going to make them much more accurate. And then of course AI for loan officers, matching borrowers with the perfect loan products. Yeah, it's AI and blockchain I see being very instrumental in the future of the real estate mortgage industry.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'm going to go with what I'm worried about, not with what I see working. I'm worried about bias in the training models. I really am. If you start to see the homeownership gap between minority households and white households, it's tremendous. I'm really excited by large language model technology. Mike has a chat GPT that I can use. I jump in the thing once every week or so, once every 2 weeks, just ask a question, figure out what's going on. Hey, is this the same thing I'm looking for? And what I realize is once those things are up and running, what they really are is they're the go-to guy. I mean, 5 years ago when I got here, or 4 years ago when I got here, my phone would just not stop ringing. Everybody was like, I have a question. I know you know the answer to this. And it does no good to have one guy that knows the answer to this. I'm not connecting with customers. I'm not reviewing their documents up front at a pre-approval meeting. I'm not the one who's saying you can buy this much house here with this certainty, upend your life and do it, and then give them the information. Oh, by the way, we need this now. We need this now. You can't do this. You have to do this. That's not what my role is. But unfortunately, I have the rounded experience where I know a whole bunch of that. Getting people into a position where they can use our capacity software or they can use another large language model software to look up answers is tremendous. But to me, they've got to be mission critical. There can't be implicit bias in there. There can't be hallucinations in there. There can't be the wrong information, because our job really, really, really is to give the right information based on the right piece of data as quickly as possible. That's what makes our loan officers' reputations actually work, is that they never say X, haha, just kidding. It's really Y. We've got to get them to that right piece. So bias in language models scares me. Hallucinations in language models scare me. And anybody who thinks that the large language model is not going to fully impact this, I'm waiting for the day for an LOS system to be connected directly to the agency guidance that just says yes, no, yes, no. You fill out your information. You don't have to push the information back and forth because it's making a constant call that just says you have the information the way that it is. I'm waiting for that to happen. I take 10, 15 meetings a month just looking at new technology on a regular basis. I learned from somebody smart a while ago. Just take the meeting. You never know what they're pitching and when that application is actually correct. So I listen to them, I see them, I know what's going on in the industry, and I'm all about growing with the LLMs without bias.
Yeah, that's definitely a good approach. So And as long as we're, not being the early adopters, right? Um,
Oh, I'm
well,
early. I'm early. Again, if you're not last, you're probably still early. But you've got to prove that it's stable and you got to prove that it's enterprise capable and that it is mission critical software. Because the minute you depend 700 people's jobs on something and it doesn't go well, it's not going to go well for me either.
yes. All right. Well, just to wrap up, we wanted to hear just some final words and advice for mortgage professionals. Maybe, just what advice would you give to someone just starting out, especially in the context of adapting to new technologies or how they can start integrating these tools into their work?
This question spoke to me because as we've established earlier, I'm still relatively new to the industry. 5 years ago is when I started working at Revolution, and there was a while. So the way that things would work for me is I would get requirements for a project, and I would get to understand those very well, and then my head would be down writing code. So I'm not really learning, the business. I'm just learning that one thing that I'm working on. And so I went to Femi about this. I'm like, man, I need to get more, familiarized with this industry. And, he had a great idea, and that was to invite me to the Mortgage Collaborative. And I go every 6 months, and it's insane how much more I pick up every time by being there. Just that immersion. Even though it's just for a few days every 6 months, I pick up so much more from that. And from that, I also realized that there's podcasts out there. You can listen to those and continue that immersion. Um, and Chat GPT, there's never been a time where things have been easier to teach yourself anything that you want. Chat GPT, if you learn how to use it, it just lays it out for you. And it may not always be Chat GPT. All of these companies are coming up with their own, generative AI, but just, I would say for anybody, regardless of the industry you're in or what you're doing, learn how to leverage it. Because otherwise you're going to get left behind. But you can also teach yourself anything. So just stay curious. Use ChatGPT to give yourself a roadmap. Like, what do you need to do? Here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's really what I've done. Femi can attest to, when I go to these events, I'll hear them talking about, CFPB and, GSEs and, all of these acronyms that were just, totally foreign to me. I'm just like sitting there, what's a non-QM? They're just punching all this stuff into Chat GPT, and I see Femi over next to me laughing at me as I'm trying to educate myself on the fly. But it works. So I would encourage anybody to do the same. If you're not familiar with something, just throw it into Chat GPT. It'll clue you in.
I love it. I love it. I got different advice for folks. And this is going to be along the line of the path that I took to get here. So if you're a new person starting out in the mortgage industry, learn what's going on in the industry as opposed to focusing immediately on the sale or on the task at hand. Understand who you turn something into. Who do they turn it into? What does the person after you do? What does the person after them do? If you understand what the end goal is, it's a lot easier to say, this is where I can cut a corner, this is where I cannot cut a corner. Because what you realize when you're trying to do something in sales is you're just trying to get to that end. And if that end doesn't have the same quality product that somebody else is expecting it to have, you haven't actually saved any time. So understand what is going on with the process first, what's going on with origination, what's going on with processing, underwriting, closing, shipping. How does a loan get sold? What does it look like? Once you learn that, then you will learn how to be more efficient in all of those processes. And if you can find any space that is just, I can differentiate this because I can make a loan close in 15 days. That differentiator that you've recognized that says, oh, I can save time by doing X, Y, and Z is what's going to set you apart from everybody else. So the rest of our podcast, they talk about branding, they talk about being authentic, they talk about getting out there, they talk about all of these things that are the value adds. The easiest thing that you can do to value add is to just make the process easier for somebody else. So if you lean into the technologies that really make things easier, maybe it's the consumer permission data, maybe it's how electronic documents get passed back and forth, maybe it's how you take your application, however it is that you can provide value to the consumer, that's where you'd really go. So understand the process, then find ways to make things more efficient. And if you're in sales, learn your CRM inside and out in every way possible, because it is the single biggest way that you can capture business. That customer acquisition is it's hands down the hardest part of this. Understanding that is where you go.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And Mike and Femi, those are just great pieces of advice for our listeners. So hopefully, if they take anything away and they listen to the end of the episode, that is definitely major key advice. And which is adapting, new technologies and how to just be better overall in their career, in their workforce. But yeah, that is pretty much all we have for today. So again, just want to thank you guys for joining us on this episode and really enjoyed learning more about the technology, what's to come, and everything that we've covered.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This was fun.
Yeah, it beats working.
To stay up to date with our podcast, please subscribe, follow us on social media, and visit our website, revolutionmortgage.com, to learn more about how we are revolutionizing the mortgage industry. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you next time.